Today, however, new parts, like new radios, are difficult to get. Therefore, when your radio needs attention, it's important that you call not just a handyman, but a highly skilled radio technician.
Okay, welcome back to Mike's Radio Repair and Restoration. And we're back for part 5 of our Hallicrafters S-40 restoration. In this episode, we're going to cover quite a bit of material. But first things first, as I had closed off the last one, we had noticed in our initial assessment that the main tuning cap is quite loose on the chassis. All of the grommets are gone. The grommets have failed, and the dial cords have pulled the tuning capacitor over towards the center, making the dial not on center with the window. So this is a common problem that I found with a lot of these radios, as well as the SX99s. Now, I'll tell you something that I do, and all the purist old guys are going to go grumble, 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 but I do something different. I have, in the past, installed new grommets, but with the warmth and whatnot and time, the same problem always seems to occur, is that the capacitor will drift off center as the rubber warms up and releases. And if you look at some of other Hallicrafters radios and other folks' radios, they hard mount these right to the chassis. And that's what I do, is I'm going to use a spacer and a washer. I'm going to hard mount this exactly where it needs to be. And I've found myself personally that that winds up in a better product. If I put the rubber back in on the front, and you even put down a cup of tea or a coffee on your desk, and you create a little bit of vibration, and you're listening to sideband, you'll hear the frequency wobble. But once you tie that to the chassis, that problem goes away. Now in the back, there's a small little tiny grommet. That's okay, and I've replaced these before. A little round rubber grommet goes in the back of these units. So I'm going to tie the front down with metal spacer and a washer, exactly where it needs to be. So when I do that, I'm going to clean the top of the chassis, because I'm going to lift that capacitor a little bit. Might as well clean the chassis. So those are my my next steps here now. Is I'm going to unfasten this. I'm going to take the tuning tower off. I'm going to clean the chassis. Going to put the capacitor down where it belongs and test it by putting the face panel back on it. Once I get the top of the chassis done, the capacitor down, the tuning tower cleaned, then I'm going to restring it. And at that point, we can put some knobs and dials and tubes in it and turn it on and see where we go. The next part about that, I'll be dealing with the front panel and making a new window and getting it back in the case and all those types of good things. So I'm going to tear into doing the cleaning now. Okay. Let's take a look at some slides here, and everybody can relax. It's not my vacation. And this is what we started out with. It was a rather dirty unit, that's for sure. And as I said, I normally would have started the unit by now and done the cleaning once we know that we have a radio, but we had to deal with the grommets on the tuning capacitor, and may as well clean underneath that capacitor and get the top cleaned up while we're doing it. So here, this is where we started. And you can see how filthy it is underneath that cap, with the grommets removed and the capacitor lifted up a little bit to clean underneath it. This is the before, and here's the after. A little bit better, I would say. And this is kind of a progression from left to right about cleaning. You can see we've got about half of it done, and if you're astute, you notice the tuning tower has been removed. And here we got a little bit more cleaned. And there we go. We've got it fully cleaned, and the tuning tower is back on. Note that the shafts have been polished and lubed and cleaned. You might say, well, you could have done a better job cleaning the chassis. Well, yeah, I suppose maybe, but I don't like to. And I'll tell you why. Some guys use some very caustic, corrosive chemicals to get these chassis spotlessly clean. But if you notice that all of these tubes are riveted down, And when you get caustic or corrosive chemicals in and under around the rivets, excuse me, these rivets are a necessary ground for each of these tubes and the circuits around them. So the chances of inducing a bad ground is significant. It's not zero, that's for sure. So that's why I don't hit them with super caustic chemicals. I get it as clean as I can. I scrub it an inch at a time with a toothbrush. You know, some guys use WD-40, some guys use Vim. I've got my own mixture of chemicals that I use. But I think for what this radio is, I think it came up fairly clean. So here's our tuning tower back installed, and you can see the shafts are polished up and there's fresh lubes in the shaft. And this is where I've tied down the tuning capacitor with not using rubber grommets. When you use rubber grommets, like I say, the chassis heats up, it gets hot, the rubber kind of sort of lets go, and that tuning capacitor begins to drift towards the tuning knobs again. And you know, the springs will take up a little bit on the tuning cord, but your dial calibration goes out, and it just drives me nuts. So I've always hard mounted them down. That way, calibration bang stays. I've got lots of good reasons for doing it. I don't like the rubber bushings that they put in there. They just drift, and your dial calibration goes out, and then your tuning dial is not in the center of your tuning window. So my solution here fixes all that. It stays where it belongs. And here we have our dials restrung. Not my favorite job, but you can certainly follow the manual, and can get it done. Again, not my not my favorite job, but it's done, and it's all working very nicely. This is the window I made up. If you remember when we did our initial assessment, the window was had shrunken and fallen down in between the chassis and the front panel. And I'm going to do a complete separate video as to how to make this window and how to do that nice scribed line. It's very simple, and you can apply this ideology or this technique to many other radios. So these are the little screws that hold the speaker grill and the dial bezel all in place, and they were blued, and they only kind of get rusty over the years. And I clean them up and I spray them with, of course, a rattle can spray paint. If you go into an automotive store and you ask them for a can of trim paint, black trim paint, it'll come semi-gloss black, and that's kind of sort of what you want, and that's what I've used here. I've used an automotive trim paint that's a semi-gloss rather than flat or gloss. It's kind of right in between and kind of fits with the radio. So here's the face panel put back together. It's not quite fully clean yet, but almost. It's not going to win any beauty contests, but it's not bad either. I've seen much worse, and this one, once it's fully cleaned and all the knobs back on it, it won't look too horrible. At some point, somebody will be happy to have it in their collection. So here is my fix that I do with speakers. They get little tiny cracks in them across the surrounded area there. And I use alphatic resin, which is carpenter's wood glue, and I'll put a little bit on a card, and I'll use a little pick tool, and I'll put a little line of it down across each of the splits in the speaker. And when it dries, it's very solid again and very usable again. It's a good, long, durable fix. And here you can see it kind of sort of dries semi-clear. You can see it's a little bit glossy there, but that works just fine. So we're going to move on to the next step now. Okay, so our next step here is to find out if we got a radio. So let's plug some tubes in it, and we're going to turn it on. Let's go through the tubes here now. We're going to deal with a good old-fashioned 80 tube rectifier. Goes in the rear there. This is our good old-fashioned 6F6 audio tube. Comes up front here. And we have a 6J5. This tube I replaced. This is the BFO. I'm sorry, I should announce that this is the audio output tube. This is the rectifier. The 6J5 we just put in is the BFO oscillator. Okay. 6SQ7. I've replaced this tube. This is the detector and first audio amp. 6H6, just a diode gate noise circuit. Doesn't work great, but there it is anyway. Now this is a 6SA7, and it is the oscillator and the mixer. Now I replaced this tube only because it is the heart of the radio, and if you've got a good strong 6SA7, you've got a good radio. So giving this the best send off we can here now. So I was digging through my stash of tubes, and I found this brand new in a box, and it tests really good. So I thought, well, it'd be a fitting use for it. Okay, and we have here now, this is a 6SG7. This is the first RF amp, the first tube radio signals coming in to the radio sees. And I can see the last two we've got here now. This is a 6SK7, and it is an IF amplifier. And here's another 6SK7, and it is also the second or the first IF amplifier. Okay, so our tube complement is installed. Our power is off. Let's turn our variac on. 113 volts. Let's take it down a little bit. Down to 110. So here we go. We're going to turn it on. Is it going to be a radio? We're going to set it on band 1, which is the broadcast band. Well, let's turn it on and see what happens, shall we? Do we have a radio? The lights came on. That was a good sign. Good sign. Oh, there we have noise. Woo, that's great. So, do we have a radio? We do.
What they need to do, they have to be able to say, that doesn't make it. Context, we should be at minus delete. So we can do to lower our Medicare premiums down the road because we're.
Okay, let's move on to the second band. Let's see if it's active. I hear noise. Yep, we got noise. How's our tuning capacitor work here? Good, good, good. Okay, move on to the third band. We got noise, which is good. Oh. The tone circuit work? Yep, it sure does. I don't think you can hear that, but how about our BFO? Yep, BFO's working. Let's see if band 4. I don't think we're going to hear anything on band 4 because it's kind of later in the evening. Let's see. We've got static, so I know the band's working. I'm not hearing anything, but it's late in the evening and there's not much on the. Like I'm up at 40 megahertz. Let's go down 35, 30. Through the CB band and the amateur 10-meter band. Something in there. Well,
local volunteers. The relief team prepared the food relief packages, which also contained alternative living.
Well, there you go. I don't think that radio has seen the light of day since the 1960s. Looking at everything and all the clues, if you will. So I think it sat in somebody's basement or garage for all these years, but it's certainly nice to see it come alive. It certainly was a lot of work, but it's rewarding and I enjoy it. I hope you enjoyed the trip. So we're gonna just put the face panel on it, I think, is going to be the next step and see how that goes. Get it back in the case, IF alignment, and then after that RF alignment, and we'll have us a radio. So just hang tight and let me, getting the face panel on isn't a big deal. It won't take very long. So we'll be back in a minute. Okay, face panel's on, knobs are on. I just finished doing IF alignment and BFO alignment. I still have the RF deck to align, but I won't do that till the case is on. But I wanted to do this final wrap-up piece here. As you can see, our dial turned out nice. Got a nice sharp line. I'll throw up a photo of that. I also removed the previous owner's modifications that were in the back. He had brought out two lines. One of them was an output of the mixer, and another one was control for ABC. So they were removed, and it left two holes in the chassis, and I put a couple of rubber grommets in to close the holes, and I think it did a fairly good job. So the only thing that's really left for this old girl is to put the case on and do the final alignment. I won't bore the pants off you. I can see by looking at a lot of the adjusters on the bottom of the chassis that somebody was guessing at alignment. I call it a malignment rather than an alignment. Somebody gave it a good solid malignment, so I'll have to carefully go through the RF deck and bring everything back to snuff. Even so, it's not very well aligned. It works not bad for an S-40. It's pretty typical. Let's just tune around and see what we can find. Sidepad. Kind of weak today.
Here's my shack. Into on the back of the amplifier. So the amplifier has 4 antenna ports and 2 radio ports, input ports. So this the ring lights on that the input port 2, and it shares one of the 4 antennas.
Take it out of there. Let's go up to the high band. It wasn't working well last night, so let's give it a try this morning. Let's go and look for the CB guys who always scream at this time of day. Oh boy. Yeah, there they are.
Very good day. Sam, man, I'll see you back. Plans for good. He's finished.
So some activity in there. Probably get a little stronger with alignment. Then 3, we'll give it a shot. See what we got. Canadian time signal.
God at his word. He wouldn't offer all that. think it's an important point.
Oh, and multiple channels.
So on him and a few chapters after that, so it is.
Don't think there'll be much on 2 or 1 at this time of day. It's very early in the day. So this is low frequency. We're like 5 down to 160 meters, down to 1.8. Canadian time signal, of course, you can hear. But anyways, that about wraps this project up. I think it was a good success. We had our hurdles to cross over. Nothing too serious, but I think it turned out well. It's reasonably pretty, and I think after the final alignment, it'll be a nice sharp radio. So I hope you enjoyed the journey as much as I did, and we're going to wrap up our S-40 restoration project with this and call it a success. So we'll look forward to seeing you in the next one, and thanks for tuning in, and please don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. We could really use the support. Thanks again.